Finals of North America, but Soraka received some, in my opinion, substantial nerfs in the patch that we are playing on right now, yet they still are able to draw a ban away on that champion.
So very impressive. Fearing the CLG Soraka, maybe the play style. Another ban will be the Kindred. We've touched on some of the champions. Kindred's still one of those top-tier junglers removed off the list. We know Xmithie has a number of options to fall back to, most notably the Elise, but another support ban.
Already we have some crazy things happening. It's heavy targeting on the bottom lane of wuxx and Mata, which tells me that CLG are probably still going for Caitlyn and potentially Bard and a lane bully, lane dominant duo lane, because this means Azir or Maokai is absolutely available for first pick if they want it, which is actually insane to me. I thought that North America was going to continue to ban those champions, but they have not.
All right, so already pulling some surprises. Another support ban. Bard taken off the table. So Caitlyn Bard not available for CLG. How do they bounce back?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to see because there are incredibly targeted bans for both of these teams. Whether or not the targets are hitting their mark, I do have to question. The Twitch was only played in one game in the LPL finals for them, and that was in response to the Twitch that was played against them in Game 3 of the series. And then also the fact that they have banned Ryze. It was also something that I thought Huhi was going to pick very early in drafts. So we talked about expectations, QuickShot. This is already changing some of them.
Completely rewriting the rulebook. Maokai still up and available, as is Sivir. Let's find out what is going to be prioritized here for China, for the LPL, and for Royal Never Give Up. They got 30 seconds before first pick. What is most likely here? Jungle Pool hasn't really been hit, with Kindred the only target ban.
Right, so there were Graves with very slight nerfs on this patch, Nidalee with very slight nerfs, and Kindred was obviously the only ban. So I feel like you could, in a perfect world, trade the Nidalee for a Graves, but Xmithie had not played much Graves throughout the regular season, and wow, Darshan did play one Maokai in the playoffs in a defeat to Team Liquid, but they're going for it because they do not want to let Looper get Maokai.
We need to find out if NA are maybe buying into a play style that the LPL squad and RNG may have more experience, if they're looking for those mid-game team fights, if they're looking to go toe-to-toe with China's best. How do you think that's going to play out?
There's a lot of different ways it can play out because it really depends on how the LPL draft favors towards the expectations of CLG, because if they're picking something that is meant to shut down 1-3-1 and CLG picks an overwhelming teamfight composition, yeah, CLG would be able to have an edge. But here, with Alistar and Azir locked down, it's looking like they're getting exactly what they want. Mata, Alistar, mlxg's Nidalee is absolutely insane and crushed during the regular season, and everything they have so far is actually perfect for them.
The Alistar god from China, Mata, shows that his maybe aggressive, sometimes over-aggressive playstyle is a little more forgivable when he's playing the cow, and very comfortable picks here for RNG. A little bit of time to respond for CLG. You know, they've locked in that tank front line. How do they round it out? What is next for this team to look at?
Ooh, well, you're wondering at this point with the Maokai already locked in, they're going to hope to counterpick the mid lane for Huhi. They don't necessarily have to wait for that right now and might actually look to... Yeah, they're going to wait for the counterpick. It looks like they will be going with the Graves jungle and a Caitlyn AD carry. So these are, once again, things that are kind of common in the Caitlyn for CLG, but also uncommon in the Graves for Xmithie. Only one Graves game throughout the regular season, and I watched it, I cast that game, it wasn't very pretty.
And to be fair, the Braum's not one of Aphromu's most played champions either, 2-3 times throughout the course of the split, not something that CLG have fallen back to. But this whole pick and ban is not something we were expecting, not something we were anticipating in the first game of MSI.
Well, we're not anticipating it because we expected CLG to stop RNG from getting exactly what they wanted, but they didn't. So right now, we're looking like a very comfortable Chinese squad for RNG right here. Their last two picks will just have to be AD carry and top laner. The one thing that I do have to say is that at least if we're defining what S tiers are for each role, CLG did get the S tier top laner, and oh my god! That's Aurelion Sol.
Game 1 of mid-season Invitational, and Aurelion Sol has arrived.
CLG's Coach 6, I was talking to him before the tournament, and this is fair play right now. I was like, what do you think about Aurelion Sol? He's like, I don't know, we tried it, we're probably not going to play it. He lied! They're playing it first game. They kept their cards tight to the chest.
Right, what does this mean for the team composition here for CLG, knowing the possibilities that Huhi's going to have to work with, and Aurelion Sol.
So one of the things about Aurelion Sol is his roaming is actually spectacular, which fits perfectly into Huhi, but the thing with that is he needs to be able to get a lead on Azir in order to roam. If you get an early Rod of Ages and Rylai's Scepter on Aurelion Sol, you can absolutely take over the game because you can roam so quickly with him, and it actually is just a massive team fight, team composition after the early roaming happens. With Maokai, Aurelion Sol, and the double marksman with the tank support, it looks like they're going to be looking to go toe-to-toe with RNG in team fights and surprise them with a new mid lane pick.
Toe-to-toe in team fights, but they've got the advantage in terms of that limited experience against Aurelion Sol. This is the first tournament that he is going to be available for here at MSI. And CLG, they've pulled it out. They pulled a surprise card. Now the question is, how well practiced are they? Now we need to see how good are their team fights, how coordinated are their roams. And you guys at home have got to let us know exactly who you think will be victorious here. Jump onto Twitter, use the force to tell us whether or not you think it'll be hashtag RNG win for Royal Never Give Up and China, or hashtag CLG win for Aurelion Sol, for Counter Logic Gaming, and for North America. All right, once you've done voting, let's actually take a look at who you guys at home think is going to own the Rift in this matchup. With a larger share of MSI icons on their respective server, it's North America that will be bringing their colors, their logo to the stage, despite being on enemy ground.
Hey, 0-10 last year at Worlds, the first small victory for North America here already with the stage controlled. Shown improvement, good job, NA.
Already onto the Rift. It's CLG that have grouped up. They are the ones that are initiating an early level invade. Get some vision down, and we'll see whether or not they're going to look to set up a lane swap. We heard from the analyst days talking about North America as a region with more lane swaps than any other, and CLG, we know how good they are at the early game.
They're already throwing down early lane swap wards. We've heard the scouting report on RNG that the LPL in general, they do lane swaps differently, and most people in NA and EU think they do it suboptimally. So immediately CLG is going to put them to the test and run their lane swapping right up against them. They put the deep wards down, they're trying to spot them out, and they're going to try and get that swap.
All right, we'll find out if they can land the swap. Quick note that the tri-codes for all of the teams at MSI will be in their team's respective colors. So for RNG and CLG, it looks backwards, blue side, red side, but they're just sporting their colors. They're just sporting their LCS and LPL pride. Take a look, this is another slight change here from CLG. Stixxay and Aphromoo running through the jungle, trying to put some challenge, and Huhi already using the center of the universe stars around him to push this wave out and put some pressure on Xiohu.
Yeah, so definitely the swap there. I think they were trying to catch an early jungle start when they did that invade, but at this point, the whole story is really about Huhi, who's already taken a lot of harass from Xiohu and will only have a couple of health potions, and he's going to be running up very quickly. But with that, I'm very surprised that Looper's even in that lane against Caitlyn and Braum, because he won't be able to get experience, and he's already not double jungling. So favorable early on for CLG, I would say yes.
All right, so small advantages here. Huhi and Xiohu trading relatively evenly. Good stun there from the Star Surge, and Celestial Expansion just dealing multiple ticks of damage to Xiohu. It's a lane matchup we've not seen here on this stage, this level of play, and the lane swap did initiate. So Darshan and Looper are going to be struggling for resources for the next few minutes.
For sure, but Darshan's already here soaking up some experience in the turret trade, whereas we see Looper running up top lane with Poppy. So I think CLG has a little bit of a tempo advantage in the early lane swap right here, but where they have a disadvantage is already in the mid lane. Huhi burned through both his health potions, recalled at level 2 before he could even get back in the lane quickly, so he's already losing this mid lane.
How damaging will it be? We know Huhi as a player gives up some of his own resources, so to speak, but with the end goal of being helping those side lanes.
Yep.
At what point does it become too much? That's the question we're going to find out.
Yeah, not yet. So we're good, but it's kind of a crazy thing that Huhi's doing. He's actually recalling again. So this is his second recall in the first 3 minutes and 30 seconds of the lane. Maybe he's going to pick up a second Doran's Ring or something, just because he's running out of mana very quickly with the way he's trying to wave clear to deal with XioHu's Azir.
Yeah, it feels like every time we look at that middle lane, he's using both Q and W just to push the wave out, just try, push it back. Luckily for Huhi, he's got that Comet of Legend, going to give him the ability to get back to lane very quickly. And on screen, we saw the first towers being traded, both RNG and CLG securing step 1 of that lane swap.
Exactly. and they're reswapping right now. So the question will be like whether they freeze or whether they push in to take more turrets, because even though CLG lane swapped more than any other team, if you compare them with regions, they actually weren't killing that many turrets in the lane swaps. They were just kind of trying to starve out people and freeze the lanes.
Ooh, early flash there from Looper. Respecting the chair. Didn't want to get caught out. And one of those first preconceptions, Jatt, is going to continue to be tested here. Will RNG's ability to play the lane swap match up against one of the best lane swap teams in North America?
Yeah, and then at the same time, while the lane swap is happening, they're really not even paying that much attention to the mid lane, so they're just battling against each other. And I do also kind of have to point out from the NA Finals, when Huhi was playing mid lane Echo, he had all these tools to get back to lane very quickly, whether it was the Echo ultimate or a mid lane teleport. Aurelion Sol can be very similarly played in the fact that you use your health and mana very aggressively to shove out the lane, then you go back to base because you can get back to lane faster than the other guy. So I think that's actually what Huhi's going to be doing in this lane. He doesn't care actually about taking favorable trades, he just cares about continuing the CS. And then as soon as that E's back on cooldown, he's coming back to lane again.
I think we may have to call this the runaway strat, because it seems to be working in terms of getting the CS.
CS is even.
Very, very impressive for Huhi. About to get access to his ultimate, and the second towers of the lane swap are under pressure. Traditionally, we would see some focus on the Rift Herald as the next step in this lane swap process. Let's find out whether or not that is the case. Cull's picked up for both AD carries. And actually that tower not just going down. Looper will pick it up with this next wave.
This will be the second time Looper's been able to get solo turret gold for himself, which is actually going to put him about 250 gold, temporarily ahead of Darshan, who's also getting solo turret gold in the top side. And yeah, QuickShot, they are mirroring each other here. RNG will get the first dragon, but CLG will get the first Rift Herald.
All right, so what does CLG do with the Herald? They've got a couple minutes to make a play, maybe set up for another tower if they so desire. Very, very early first dragon here for Royal Never Give Up, and catch a glimpse of Darshan taking that top tower. So small advantages here in gold for Counter Logic Gaming, thanks to the additional farm on both Xmithie and Huhi. But now the action can start to happen. Now we can start seeing the setups for maybe some deeper pushes or for some kills. Yeah,
well, if you're looking about the kills, don't expect CLG to be engaging in any big team fights, because Stixxay has done something he's done a few other times, but he rushed Boots of Swiftness on top of his Cull Thorns Blade Caitlyn. That is not a fight build. That is very much a, I'm just going to walk to the lane faster than you and continue to try and create a tempo advantage. As far as the overall team compositions go, it'll be a bit of a matchup between the Maokai Aurelion Sol team fighting versus the Azir Poppy, and it's kind of, it's hard to tell. We haven't seen enough Aurelion Sol in competitive to be able to tell QuickShot.
I can't wait to see some of these explosive team fights. There is a lot of options for CLG. I do want to give some praise to Xmithie, currently out farming mlxg on this Graves, doing very well, keep himself relevant, got access to the collateral damage, and already starting to roam down. A lot of members of CLG beginning to gravitate, dare I say, with Aurelion Sol towards that bottom lane, but no real pressure just yet.
No, definitely not. And I guess the other thing we'd have to factor in once we get to team fights are the rather substantial Poppy nerfs compared to the last time we saw them. And also the fact that Nidalee's not very good in team fights in general against a very heavily tanked team from CLG. So like, if Darshan can get farmed on Maokai, the more I think about it, the more I think CLG would be favored in team fights compositionally.
Let's find out if they get those chances. Another flash from wuxx. Xmithie just shows his face. And that's the second time that CLG have been able to make a proactive play and secure a summoner. No first blood just yet, but look at the push down bottom, setting up for a 3v3 as Huhi looks to challenge xiohu, but he's used a lot of his abilities and cooldowns.
Yeah.
Doesn't really want to extend that one further.
He used his E to get back to lane, and he's actually low on health and mana right now, so it's going to be a little bit delayed before he could make that play to just recall and zoom back to lane again. I do have to credit Mata for stuffing that gank. He had very good timing on his head, but pulverized to stop that from happening. But the way we see this, it looks like CLG's very slightly pulling ahead in these lane swaps.
And this is something that was somewhat to be expected. Early game, lane swaps, you would have given the advantage to CLG coming in, maybe just on experience alone. The fan vote is definitely here in favor of North America with that hashtag NAWin vote.
Right.
Now we need to see if CLG can set up those team fights with this comp they put together.
Yeah. We're using Twitter. Good job, North America.
Yeah.
it's really good. But you did mention experience here, and I do think that's very important that CLG has failed twice at international events, but they have been able to learn from those experiences, where if then you look at RNG, they have two world champions with Looper and Mata, and they've been coaching up the experience of Xiohu, wuxx, and mlxg, and the way that these teams will react to pressure as soon as the big pressure moments start coming up will be very fun to watch.
All right, so we'll find out how long it takes for those to get set up. If you look at the minimap, you can see a lot of vision, somewhat mirrored. CLG pushing down bottom. They've got some good wards, well, which will allow Xmithie to invade, and it's somewhat equalized by Royal Never Give Up in the top quadrant of the jungle. Huhi with another setup of a roam has the ability to get you quite quickly, but actually maybe stepping over a ward.
He's going for it.
To chase Looper. Huhi may be arriving just in time. Gonna continue to chase. The keeper's verdict sends Huhi away. He flashed into it.
He did flash into it. He was trying to get there very quickly to probably land a point-blank stun in position for his ultimate, but Looper was ahead of the game, and that is a failed roam and flash out from Huhi. But the thing that I'm going to keep coming back to is Xiohu's actually not winning this lane fight very much. That's one of the things that happen when you bring out a new champion on a big stage. A lot of times Xiohu doesn't want to make any mistakes because he crushed lane when he was playing against Pawn in the LPL finals, but he is not doing that against Huhi, and that's with Huhi attempting 2 roams.
Huhi has neutralized each of the mid laners he has faced in his most recent BO5s, and in the opening game at MSI, he's even on CS with the first showing on Aurelion Sol. That is a great start. But the next steps are going to be the more challenging ones. Finding those picks, using a brand new kit to actually stun members or follow it up on Maokai. There's no room for error here.
Yeah, how many times have they practiced it? How many times has their team fought with it in team fights? We also said that, you know, they have no advantage in the mid lane, but there's an advantage in the top lane for CLG and a disadvantage in the marksman matchup between Lucian and Caitlyn. It'll equalize a little bit with Stixxay pushing out the bottom lane, but still a very competitive game, and I'm thinking this next time Dragon and Rift Herald come up, they could choose to fight if they chose to, or they could trade again.
We'll find out. It's about 45 seconds away, leading up to the next Dragon. Counter Logic Gaming, even on gold, even on towers, they're just one objective behind.
Oh, they just got spotted.
Gonna get caught out, pulverized up into the air. Afro's looking for the chase. Stixxay does have a flash, flashes over the wall to stay alive, and Afro is gonna manage to knock him away for a few seconds. Looper teleports in for first blood, and it's China that get on the board. CLG are in full retreat, and they will live to fight another day, but without Stixxay.
Yeah, the timing of that headbutt pulverized. Stixxay was trying to net through the wall, but it cost him because the headbutt hit him mid-flight, so he had to flash late. It allowed Looper to teleport in to finish the kill since CLG was already at a disadvantage, and that is how RNG do it. They're going to try and take this kill and get some mid lane pressure going, but Huhi's going to try to re-engage.
He's pushing forward with the Star Surge, not going to find Mata with the stun, and that means Huhi, he went fishing, didn't find anything.
Yeah, looking at this, CLG was just trying a very dangerous roam. They were probably going to set up a 5-man gank on that Azir in the mid lane, and the instant that Mata realizes Stixxay can only get away with flash, Looper started channeling his teleport, so he was able to catch him after he flashed. That was because of a very early channel start on his teleport. Since Darshan was already bottom to probably prep a predicted turret dive, he couldn't have even seen that Looper teleport coming in, so well executed by RNG after waiting in the right spot.
And any advantage that Darshan had in this lane over Looper has now been turned around on him. 8 CS down is Looper, and he got the first blood gold. Already picked up that Spectre's cowl. Gonna get interrupted by a little smash from Darshan. And CLG, now they find themselves a little bit under pressure. Mata unable to find any further targets, and that was a good pick-off by them.
They're under pressure, but they do have the teleport advantage if they want to utilize it. The problem here is that Looper did a very smart thing, running top lane and shoving the lane very deep, because now he has the option to run out towards Dragon and let RNG get position since they have more people, and they also have the Nashor's Tooth on the Azir, which is very good to set up your zone control early on. This is looking like we could be seeing the beginnings of the Dragon fight.
And also, every single time I look at that inventory, Royal have got so many pink wards. I can count 3 or at least 4 of them on the minimap from RNG, and they still have more to replace them. So options available to set up more plays. Look at CLG trying to play the counter vision game, and somewhat as predicted, the next Dragon is pulling all of the champions to that area of the rift. And CLG, they're not going to give it up.
I think CLG should go for Dragon right away because they know they have the teleport advantage, and they could easily go for this since Nidalee and Poppy were both just top lane. They know they have the teleport advantage, but instead they're invading the red buff. Red buff greater than Dragon at the moment.
Seems to be the focus. Huhi survives, forced to use that Voice of Light, teleport now being channeled by Darshan. He's looking for Xiohu. Xiohu has a flash, a slide, a glide in 3 seconds, throws down Emperor's Divine, but will not be enough. Darshan gets the first kill for CLG.
Arcane smash through the wall, the long-range stun from Huhi, and they make their teleport advantage work for a kill. That means both top laners now have a kill, but where are the objectives coming from? Because they expended a lot from that. Huhi is very low, Darshan used both summoners, and they need to deal with the wave top lane, so I think it's going to be a kill for a teleport, but I don't think there's actually going to be objectives traded right afterwards.
Yeah, not really the best investment, but it will at least even out the playing field. Darshan's going to continue to get tanky, trade with Lupa as he returns to lane. Dragon still standing, mid lane tower looked like it could have been pressured by RNG, but they opted away from it, and just maintaining vision here to allow and enable maybe Lupa to keep pushing out deep, keep pushing forward. Here's a replay of that TP.
Yeah, it looks like RNG is going to be able to take the Rift Herald during this replay, and yeah, Xiohu goes really aggressive on Huhi, but the ult is actually a very good disengage on the Aurelion Sol kit, and this is the teleport advantage just working in huge. Xiohu knew he had the flash, but he didn't really have anywhere that would actually save his life, so he is unable to use his summoner spells to stay alive. Darshan uses his, gets an arcane smash over the wall, and it evens up the kills and the gold.
All right, so 15 minutes in, Darshan's been able to farm up another CS advantage. Huhi is actually up nearly 20 CS in that mid lane. Aurelion Sol very well.
He's figured this out, at least to this extent, and it's going to be hard to deal with it because you can't step up to Aurelion Sol when he's in lane. You can get the Thunderlord's damage, which Xiohu's been doing, but he's got the Catalyst sustain as well as the ability to just recall back, and he's out-pressuring Xiohu in this mid lane, which is very impressive. And we know how important these first games can be because every team has to play 2 games on a day, and this very first game is still incredibly close.
And how much of a surprise.
Oh, surprise!
Pulverized, CLG forced to retreat. Voice of Light, as well as the Star Surge comes out. That will buy some time for Counter Logic Gaming. Darshan has got the Vengeful Maelstrom reducing the damage, and nobody dies just yet.
Right, CLG was caught completely outright there, and that is because their vision control is lackluster when compared to what RNG has right now. They use the Aurelion Sol ultimate as a very strong disengage, but now they are under pressure for the Dragon. CLG does not seem to want to give this up. They're either looking for a mid lane trade, RNG probably looking for a fight.
RNG going to defend the tower in the mid lane successfully and force CLG back. We're 16 minutes in, we're even on gold, and the lane swap was initiated by CLG. At what point do we start getting worried that where CLG had perceived strength coming into the game, they're going even with RNG, and now we're stepping into RNG territory.
A lot of it for CLG is trying to get pressure in all 3 lanes. Well, guess what? They have negative pressure in the lanes right now. The minion wave is pushing in the top lane. It looks like CLG actually would have a wave pushing in the bottom, but it's far too late. And they're not pulling off their 1-3-1 whatsoever. This is a mid-lane Dragon focus game at the moment, as RNG is coming down here with vision control in the Dragon area and getting their second one in the game. And if CLG is going to win this game, it's got to be through team fighting.
Got to find their targets. That's not something that you would have guessed CLG would have opted into coming into the match, but
the unseen team fight is the deadliest.
That is the case.
Sometimes.
And that can be terrifying when you think of the engaged potential of a Aurelion Sol with maybe a TP from Maokai and Darshan.
Right.
There is options here.
Get the supernova stun coming from base.
That would be
highly unlikely, obviously, and he is way ahead of this play, actually, going for wuxx.
I'm not going to find anything just yet. No stun, but looking for it. What I like is who he has attempted multiple times, but you can see the unrefined attempts on this new experience on the stage.
Here's the thing. It's really, really hard. Like, this is actually, even though it seems like a simplistic kit, oh, he's got these things that orbit him all the time, and he's got a stun and a move spell. But the way in which you use those things is so hard because you have to plan that play bottom 10 seconds in advance and get your angle right before you go for the stun. So it didn't work out that time, but that's because wuxx just wasn't in the spot who he expected him to be in at the very start.
The prediction from Huhi just slightly off. We'll find out if he can find his aim as the game plays out. We're approaching 20 minutes, and again, pink wards in the inventory of RNG, somewhat equal here by CLG. Slightly more defensive placements for Counter Logic Gaming in North America, but you have to give them props. CLG somewhat committed to the mid-game team fights. You know, Stixxay going Boots of Swiftness first, despite being down in CS, has survived, has played that wave clear role that he sort of needed to, and his solo laners are both ahead of their opponents.
Yeah, and they're going against a lot of RNG's best champions. Alistar, Nidalee arguably is one of the top champions for mlxg. Wuxx played a whole bunch of Lucian, and the only thing would be the nerf Poppy, even though Lupa played a bunch of Poppy in the regular season. And the way this game is going, QuickShot, it will actually, it's looking like it's going to be some brute force team fights.
Oh, I cannot wait. It is something that...
Which you wouldn't think would favor CLG, but when you look at their champions, they've drafted for it. So it's not like they're uncomfortable compositionally in doing that, but maybe stylistically they're going to be uncomfortable, where that's where you'd favor RNG to win this game.
I think that is fair to say, and it's not something that CLG have demonstrated a huge amount of. But they've also got some options to play. 1-3-1. They've got a very well-farmed Maokai in that top lane, up nearly 30 CS over Lupa, which is a great position to be in when you need to be that front line for Counterlogic Gaming. But you also then need to find team fights and find the targets to shut down, which is a little more challenging when you look at Nidalee, Poppy, Azir. Like, there's a lot of tools that RNG can use to also dissuade and get away from those big engages.
Or even get their own engages. The Alistar going in and catching Stixxay again would be huge for the start of a team fight. One thing that is interesting, though, is they have gone back to a 1-3-1. This is the way that CLG gets to late game team fighting, because we know Stixxay, he's waiting to get 70% crit. He needs Infinity Edge and probably 2 Zeal items before he's really huge, and then he can probably beat Wuxx. So they're just splitting the map, 1-3-1, solo laners in the 2 side lanes. They put the Caitlyn mid lane with the Hurricane and just clear out. And this is the way they play their finals against TSM.
And in case of emergency, call the center of the universe and just deliver a gigantic AoE stun to maybe bail you out of trouble. Aphromoo caught out once again by Mata. Aphromoo going to have to put the Fisher down if he wants to survive. Instead, flashes. Darshan's going to complete the teleport, and he's in the thick of it. The team fight's broken up, but Huhi is simply not here yet. He's flying in from the back line, throws out the chair. No stuns just yet. Lucian full retreat with the culling, and again, explosive fight, but no deaths.
Yeah, I really feel like these teams are still trying to find their footing on this international stage, because that was a team fight that began with neither mid laner in position to help, and both teams are kind of half in and out, but Huhi lands a stun, and Mata re-engages while he's on the turret.
Oh, that is fantastic from Royal Never Give Up. They've killed Huhi. He's down. Double kill for Wuxx, and CLG are punished. They sniffed out an attempt, and RNG bite back.
Mata gets them at exactly the right moment. Huhi thought he'd make a play by getting the stun, but that was the play RNG was waiting for. Flash pulverize into a headbutt, into an Azir all backwards, and CLG get destroyed by stepping a little bit too far.
Just further than they should have, and CLG, remember, they opted into this. They banned the Twitch and the Thresh and allowed the Alistar to go through. Champion, we know how good Mata is on that pick. CLG lose their mid-outer turret, and that will give the gold advantage and the pressure advantage to CLG.
Absolutely, and 2 kills onto Wuxx is incredibly advantageous, as he's going to have to cut through the tanks in the late game. But here we saw Huhi, as soon as he got aggro from the turret, and Mata got him with the pulverize, that turret aggro wouldn't have even mattered, actually, by the way they completely isolated CLG in that fight.
Exceptionally well played by RNG. Slightly misspoke, meant RNG with the gold lead and the pressure lead. And they're able to defend their outer mid as well. So just looking a little bit more favorable here for Royal as the game plays out, and CLG a little overeager. You know, you look at it, that was just a poor a call maybe, or a poor decision, not necessarily anything else. And they cannot afford to make more of those and give Royal more advantages and more ways to close this game out.
Yeah, and it looked like a little bit there where they were out of their comfort zone. Darshan had already TP'd in, Huhi had already meandered down, and they were a 5-man siege up towards that turret, but they have a very strong team-fighting tank line. They want to do those things at Dragon. They don't want to be able to get caught underneath the turret. Huhi's getting a relatively tanky build. He doesn't need the turret to hurt him as well in the midst of a team fight. And also, I think it was too early for them to really go for that team fight. Although they also have to respect the scaling of Azir, so these teams are very closely matched.
And I think you have to give some props here to Mata. Again, finds headbutt pulverize, the threat of that Alistar. And every positive play that Royal have made or responded to, Mata's been there on the front line. Dragon number 3 will not be contested here by CLG. That is also a very big concern. 12 minutes away from Aspect.
Yeah.
Looking at 35, that's not something we're also traditionally used to in the current meta.
For sure.
But it is a threat that CLG cannot ignore going into the next 2 dragons.
Now, Xmithie actually uses his Graves ultimate to take blue buff, so Tells you CLG's not thinking about team fighting anytime soon. Maybe it would be at 35 minutes when they actually decide to team fight around the 5th dragon.
Hey, all in. You've got all in Aurelion Sol, Maokai, team fight. Wait for Dragon 5. You kind of know that RNG are going to be there. Just win the fight.
It is something that RNG's been able to do a few times in the LPL, is just get the early dragon going and become a 5-dragon team. They moved away from it a little bit towards the end of the season where they got better strategically and weren't just like, oh, let's get a bunch of dragons so they have to come close to us and team fight.
Yeah.
But to be honest, if you get a bunch of dragons, the other team does have to get close to you and you get to team fight. So I can't fault them for those strategies, and they're set up to do it here. Absolutely
set up with a gold advantage, a kill advantage, a tower advantage, and all of the stats that 2 Dragons is already giving RNG. They're in a great position. 25 minutes in, CS numbers have all but even out and swung a little bit in Royal's favor, considering they were down, 20, 30 in the top lane, down 20 in the mid lane. But with CLG responding and trying to, set up those roams, it's hurt them a little bit. It's hurt that farm game.
Definitely, and because of the fight that was lost in the mid lane by CLG, they do seem very much on the back foot, and now the question will be, how well can RNG get vision control into CLG to stop them from stalling with this 3 lanes of pressure? RNG is going to need to get multiple waves shoving at the same time in order to get a fight, or they're just going to keep catching CLG out of position.
Very good flash from Aphromoo. He manages to, I think, taxi to a minion, get out of range of that pulverize, but flashes down that engage or that safety tool. And again, CLG caught out multiple times this game. CLG out of position. Stixxay and Aphromoo, they cut through Royal's jungle, got punished. They overstep at the tower, got punished.
Yeah, and it definitely doesn't seem like CLG is playing very well right now. They're fighting against a lot of international failure that they've already gone through. Last year at Worlds, they started the group stage 2-1, collapsed out of it. They went to IEM as well, lost to Fnatic, I believe it was, in a best-of-3 after losing to SKT. And it's a very hard environment to play in right now. They're in Shanghai against RNG, the Chinese team, and trying to make something happen. They're forcing a play here in the mid lane because Xiohu wasn't there to start.
Let's find out what damage can be done. Mata's taken a lot, but he's still in the front line with that unbreakable will. He's
Azir's on the way.
Hasn't found anything. Xiohu's looking to find one back, but the cow's already down. Darshan forced to flash defensively, and CLG are on the retreat. A very good stun for Counter Logic Gaming. A double kill for Stixxay. He manages to 90 caliber net, finds the triple, looking for the quadra. Xiohu's running for his life. He gets one. Stixxay shuts him down. It's a quadra kill for America.
Out of nowhere, CLG had not been playing very well this entire game, but they saw a small window. Xiohu was off in a side lane. Darshan had a teleport ward that he could go to, and they just go for the brawl. But Looper is actually coming back in, hoping to stop a Baron. They weren't even doing Baron.
There was a little bit of a bait. CLG waited for the TP. They've locked Looper down. This should be an easy kill, but how much time has Looper bought? Those death timers are still very high. And with Darshan, this should be Baron.
26 minutes in, that was a great bait by CLG. Mata, can he be a one-man army? I say no, because he has no ultimate right now, and wuxx is still in base, but he's gonna try. Stixxay and Aphromoo are pretty low.
Yeah, gonna buy time as much as he can. Mata gets taken down. Unstoppable for Stixxay. He was 0-1 going into that fight, now 5-1-2. Once Baron gets picked up, he's gonna have over 3,000 gold to spend, and Counter Logic Gaming. Oh, it's not over yet. wuxx fires out the culling. Getting a bit excited here, but CLG make it alive.
Wow, the pressure these teams must be under, because there are some very questionable decisions being made as they try and make up for each other's plays here. Could have been a desperation call for CLG, but it was such a good initiation because it was 5v4. RNG just wasn't expecting it. CLG had done nothing the whole game, but Darshan gets in the back line. Xiohu isn't there at the start of the fight to start anything, and watch the fight turn here as they're able to get Xmithie stunned into the wall. He gets a big Graves ult off him, and it hits all 4 people, and then Stixxay's Hurricane is hitting 2 to 3 people throughout the rest of that fight. Xiohu is able to pick up a kill right there, but it's just not enough as Stixxay can finish the quadra kill, and then that just chained into a more unfortunate events, which takes CLG from negative 3k to what's about plus 2,000 plus Baron.
Yeah, Baron power play in the first minute is already up 1,700. We'll find out if they can extend that further. Outer mid drops with no...
Look at the size of that!
That push! Oh my word! The center of the universe is Huhi! That's not a sentence I was expecting to say in game 1. And CLG, they're not letting up.
Well, they didn't really get anything for it, but it was cool. It was really, really cool. And you can see that if they ever want to set up a big siege, they can pull out that play. that can just have Huhi run back every minute or so, get the huge stun, and the other team has to back off the turret. They didn't sync it properly with the minion wave that time, but you can see the potential.
Stixxay taking far too much damage from the Javelin Spears, forced to retreat, and Xmithie was under a little bit of threat, so CLG commits a fair amount to that inner turret, unable to secure and RNG by themselves some time. 30 seconds until the next dragon.
Yep.
CLG will have to get involved in either Dragon 4 or Dragon 5, but they have an advantage now. They have the Baron. You'd think this should be the one that can secure by 6 extra minutes.
Yeah, they need it, actually. CLG really needs to force this fight. Huhi's going to have to charge up his E again if he wants to get a giant stun to zone off the Dragon Pit. That's what would be recommended. He's got to get his velocity up. There he's going at a base. Huhi's actually, he started it down the mid lane. So they're not going for a Dragon. They're going for a Siege right here. And this is where the skill really gets difficult for the Aurelion Sol. He needs to hit the minion wave as the stun arrives. They got to push those minions a little bit faster if they want this to work out.
Oh, Council Logic Gaming,
RNG
they're bringing the Star Surge.
Unreal.
That is one of the biggest Rasengans I've ever seen. And CLG, 2 attempts with that Star Surge push. It gets them the tower, it gives them the position on Dragon, and they've got a gigantic minion wave pushing down bottom. So there are advantages here for CLG.
That is so hard to deal with if you're RNG. There's nothing they can do in that exact situation unless they engage CLG early, then they'd be dealt with a stun. But the Dragon is afoot. They're going to go for a steal. He got it.
Take it, Dragon number 4.
Wow.
Xmithie, where were you? Smite was on cooldown, not available. And
it's not really Xmithie where were you? It's CLG. What are you doing? It's a Nidalee. He's walking into Smite range. Kill him. That's exactly what he should be doing right there, but CLG did not have their mind in the right place for that fight, and they give an easy steal away for mlxg. CLG, they're going to try and continue to push turrets, but that Dragon could be extremely critical. They're 1 way away from 5.
Aspect of the Dragon is a very real threat. CLG going to use that minion wave down bottom and the range of Caitlyn in a moment or two to try pushing it down. wuxx is doing what he can. Cull will do a lot actually to clear this wave out, and CLG, they lose the Dragon. They lose the wave on the bottom lane. And they are now trying to find more fight, find more ways to get into the lead again.
We just have to remember as well, though, RNG is such a good team-fighting team, and look for Mata to make a big initiation and Xiohu to show up, because Xiohu was supposed to be demolishing Huhi. I think he's been surprised a little bit by this Aurelion Sol pick and just has had one good play pretty much the whole game. They're going to have to find a way to get the right initiation.
Well, let's find out if RNG can. They're grouped up on the side. Flash
there
and
they go!
Stixxay's in trouble! He gets hit,
He's down!
away! He's down! But mlxg's on the retreat. Xmithie too. Aphro's been hammered away by the verdict. And CLG, they've lost 1. The re-engage will knock Darshan away. Xiohu's bought further time. Is out and they're running. Darshan's going to be the sacrificial tree. Goes down for the team, and Aphromoo forced to flash.
Oh,
Look
this
at the
could
flag.
be everyone.
MLXG's rounding. CLG are in trouble. They've been routed. They've been killed, and they're running for their lives.
QuickShot, 32 minutes into the game. These death timers are no joke. 40 seconds on Darshan and 42 seconds on Huhi. They could get a lot of turrets out of this one. Luckily, or as unlucky as we'd like to call it, Stixxay will be up soon, and he's going to have to mount a defense.
He's going to have to wave clip for his life. Looper teleported to the middle lane. He's got the help of Xiohu, and they're pushing up. Inner mid will fall prey. There's a cannon minion here to work with as well. And CLG are in trouble. Stixxay's up. 14 seconds before Aphro, 17 before Darshan. It's not game yet, but that is a big swing once more.
It brings it right back around again, and Stixxay was far too far forward. He's Caitlyn, he's got the highest range of the AD carries right now in this game, and he needs to just stay behind his trap line, but he did not do that right there. He actually gets turret aggro. He's that far forward, and the rest of his team wasn't there, so Mata flashes for the headbutt, pulverized to kill him right away, and then CLG could have disengaged this, especially once Looper hit Braum back, but Darshan had teleported in, was in turret in behind it, so 4v5 started, so this is RNG making better team fight decisions. That was a lost team fight for CLG the instant Stixxay died, but they stick around, and RNG is able to chase down multiple people on the back end of this fight and get a bunch of kills.
CLG opted into the team composition, opted into the play style, challenged RNG at their game. Say, here's some of your best champions. Here, let's look for team fights. And CLG come off wanting. They're 33 minutes in. They had a 3K gold lead. They are once again in a deficit, this time 2,000. Yep. Baron's up in a minute. Dragon is about 2.5 away. And both of those are going to be potentially game-ending team fights if one team makes a big
Here
mistake.
comes Huhi, but he's got a really small stun with him.
Managed to only catch Mata. Xmithie's gonna dash forward, and xiohu's put a lot of damage with those sand soldiers down. Darshan's coming from behind. Mata, he's down! He's killed!
mlxg!
And mlxg is way on the wrong side of town. Nidalee's not a frontline champion, my friend. Lupa, however, is on that poppy. He's looking for Stixxay. The hammer catches Aphromoo. CLG have got 3. They lose 2. xiohu, he's bought time, but the Star Surge sends him back in. CLG have aced RNG, and there's 1 minute death timers for some of the Chinese players. CLG are waiting for minions.
They catch yet another team fight. 3 people alive, 40 seconds to do stuff. Mata was the first one down, but the minion wave is so far behind. CLG actually will probably just reset this one and go for Baron. Oh my God, what a game this is turning out to be.
With the ace, the crowd is basically silenced. Here in Shanghai, Royal never give up. All right, risk of losing. Correction, they will lose a second Baron.
This first game means so much QuickShot. CLG and North America finished 5th at last year's MSI. China won it. So to come in and lose to the North American team in game 1 would be disastrous for this RNG team, and they've just given up another Baron.
And we heard from Mata leading into it just how important it is starting well. Here's a look at that initiating team fight, 5v3 to begin with.
Yeah, they get a stun onto Mata and burn the ultimate immediately, and then they wait for it to time out to re-engage. They kill the tank, but mlxg was going for an assassination on Xmithie, but Xmithie dashes away, and here, Stixxay looks like he's being flanked by Looper, but he waits for the dash, then flashes backwards and is able to then clean up more fights. xiohu goes for a hero play at the very end, but can't quite get enough damage out to clean up CLG. And now it's a 600 gold difference, with Dragon 5, by the way, spawning in 50 seconds.
So many questions coming into this game about how CLG would perform, how Royal would handle the macro. And we may be getting closer to finishing this off. Take a look at who he's positioning on the minimap. He's building up a big Star Surge.
Huhi's doing it again, but they don't quite have the minions in place. It's way ahead of him. He has to break it. Failed attempt.
Not this time around, but for CLG, 20 seconds until Dragon. Do not give up the next one. Xmithie has got Smite available.
Oh, are they going to catch mlxg? They're not quite in position for this fight. Stixxay was in the river.
There's no real support here from CLG, but Darshan is a very, very tanky front line. The hammer goes out and finds nobody. CLG forced to retreat. This could be important, because Darshan's below 50% HP if a dragon fight were to break out.
Yeah, CLG has Baron-empowered recall as well as teleport, so it's actually ideal that Maokai teleports into one of these team fights. They do get Rift Scuttle control, and now Darshan is going back to reset. So RNG really want this 5th Dragon, but they have to be careful. If they don't get the right fight, a lost fight loses them the game, even if they can steal the Dragon. Here comes a teleport. This is it.
This could be the fight that ends it. Darshan's running in. He's got the Maelstrom, and he's got Looper. Remember, there's no hammer. The Voice of Light goes down, and a good collateral damage. Mata! He found Huhi! Royal never give up. They've got 2 of CLG. They've got a 3rd. That's a triple kill for wuxx. He's looking for more.
Stixxay! Are you kidding me?
Triple of his own. Teleport's coming down for Looper. Quadra kill for Stixxay. Here comes Looper. Stixxay's looking for the fight. He's got a lot of damage to deal with. He's got a lot of traps to work with. He's chasing it down. This is for a Penta, running away with his life.
It's
no
so
stun
close.
against the wall. Stixxay continues to fire away. Looks for the headshots. The 90 caliber net follows through.
One more.
The longest fight ever. Looper wins it.
The longest duel to fend off the pentakill from Stixxay, and Looper comes out on top because he teleported back into that fight after the start of it.
Call your family, call your friends. MSI is bonkers already.
This is crazy. So Darshan engages early and they get a big amount of damage in the choke point, but then Mata gets the kill onto Huhi and Aphromoo here. But remember, it's a Hurricane Caitlyn reaching late game and he is crushing. wuxx dashes forward, but doesn't immediately focus Stixxay. He finished a kill on the backside, and that one auto cost him the kill onto himself as well as Mata. And then Looper, him and Stixxay just have such a long duel right here. The reduced range on the poppy nerfs were really felt right here with the buckler and not resetting the auto attack. And all this time, Looper is just trying to get one stun into the wall onto Stixxay, but can't quite get it. Proc his Iceborne, pick up his buckler, he gets the shield there, and in the final fight here, Stixxay can't quite get to the side enough, and Dragon is afoot again!
We're back up. Remember, it's Aspect for Royal, never give up. Darshan's on the front line, he's caught mlxg, but it's already a kill into Xmithie. 2 back for CLG, Mata's in trouble. 3 members of CLG collapse upon him. Look at xiohu, the damage from the soldiers is massive. Emperor's Divide will buy some time as Aphromoo sent up by the hammer. Aphromoo continues to fight.
Stixxay's
he finally
coming.
gets taken down. Stixxay's going to be late to this fight, but he should be able to clean it up. He's got the help of Darshan. 4 members of Royal are down, only 2 for CLG. They get the shutdown, they get another ace, and CLG, they're looking for game.
That might actually be game. So what happened there is RNG was trying to get the 5th Dragon because Stixxay was dead. So you wouldn't actually expect CLG to fight a 4v5 this late in the game because it would be disastrous. But it catches everyone by surprise, including the observers right there. Stixxay wasn't there until the end, but CLG was winning the fight. And with this death timer, 16 seconds, 10 seconds, boy, quick shot, it's going to be close.
This is going to be close. RNG may have an option to defend. CLG will take themselves an inhibitor. They're not fully committing for the Nexus. Instead, Supers, their first Dragon at 40 minutes, and more importantly, denying Aspect. So this was the setup to the fight.
And Stixxay is actually dead at the start of this fight, so it seems like a great 5v4 for RNG, but this kind of goes to show you the Maokai, Aurelion Sol power right here. They're just sitting in Ventral Maelstrom, having Huhi just put out a bunch of damage over time. They all run off to kill Xmithie, who zoned the fight very well while getting a fair bit of damage down. And then it's just survival right here. Wait until the Caitlyn arrives. Darshan is just so damn tanky. 1 shot is all Stixxay had to add to this fight to finish off xiohu, and then he gets some revenge on Looper because he has friends this time, and they get a 5 for 2 ace.
5 for 2 ace, a 2,000 gold advantage. More importantly, pressure in the mid lane. CLG gonna have the option to play some of these side lanes and let Supers do the work for them. But those team fights have been good for CLG. They've found the targets the later the game has gone.
They are layering so much crowd control in these team fights. 3 big frontline champions, and then Royal Never Grew Up has this Nidalee who just isn't the same in team fights. And honestly, mlxg is having such low impact in a lot of these fights, and it's all falling onto xiohu and wuxx, who have nearly carried a few team fights. But we're gonna have to pay huge attention in the next team fight to where xiohu and wuxx go versus what happens to Stixxay. Because when Stixxay has been caught out, CLG loses. When he's left to fight, they are crushing.
Looper forced to flash, forced to use the verdict. There's some windows of opportunity here for CLG. That means maybe they can push up 1, 2, 3 cannon minions in this bottom lane wave. This is something that CLG will be fairly comfortable with, grouping to push this tower, considering how low it is as well.
Yeah, Aphro needs to catch up with the team a little bit. I don't think this is the turret where we would see the fight. It would be at the next turret. This is not a Baron-empowered wave either, so it was actually would be very easy to clear for xiohu, which is why CLG is actually just going to back away, complete some items, and continue towards these cataclysmic late-game fights.
20 seconds until Baron. In actual fact, CLG will lose a tower in the top lane, thanks to that very big minion wave that is shoving in. And it'll be Darshan as well as Huhi that onset. But we're going to probably reset, look at another objective, look at another team fight. And it still could be RNG. One team fight can decide this game.
Yeah, this game is completely undecided, and I do really have to credit these teams for stepping up to the pressure here because they were very nervous at the start, but they need to be able to continue to go in. And CLG in particular, for changing their strategy. This is not a 1-3-1 split push team. Rift, Scuttler, steal, Scuttlecrab, steal there, but mid lane is where Huhi is angling this one.
Not CLG style, but they're showing they have the ability to pull it off. It's been a little messy, few mistakes here and there, but for the most part, CLG have done well, and they've used this Star Surge combo multiple times.
So there's no inhibitor. They're going to use this to try and push them back and then run for Baron, most likely. They literally just use that to clear wards in the Baron area and prep a fight.
And you have to give some props to CLG.
There they go on a Mata again. Darshan gets blown up!
He's taken so much damage. The hammer sends him for his life and the kill secured. Stixxay's running. Royal never give up. They haven't give up. They've got themselves a double. That's a triple kill for wuxx. Counter Logic Gaming. They thought they had position. They thought they had it, but they didn't. It's a quadra for Royal.
wuxx fights back with the quadra, but what happened there is Darshan got absolutely melted. He didn't realize the late game damage you can get with that Azir and Lucian, and it's a terrible engage. that gives RNG the game, and RNG is going to take the first game at MSI.
The crowd erupt with noise as Royal find an opportunity to punish Counter Logic Gaming. The death time is on monumental at 42 minutes, and they are pushing onto the base.
And RNG needed this. We heard Maokai before the game saying how important this first game was, and if they would have lost this game, which they nearly did, it could have been disastrous, but they pull together and take the game.
And Royal never gave up, striking first in Shanghai at the MSI.
Wow. The turns in that game were unreal. Back and forth and back and forth and back again.
Jatt, that says it all, doesn't it?
Power of the home crowd support after